Welcome back, everyone, to Conversations That Work with Anita Sandoval. And this is episode number 9. In today's episode, we're going to continue with people pleasing and appeasing. We are already on part 4. So I'm going to just review the parts of the people pleasing and appeasing. So that way, if in case you missed the part, you can go back to the episode. In part 1 of people pleasing and appeasing, I discussed the characteristics, the symptoms, the short-term rewards, the long-term consequences. In part 2 of people pleasing and appeasing, we discussed the quick reflex of saying yes to everything. Always saying yes before considering your own wants and needs, and the common fears of saying no. On part 3, we go ahead and work on setting loving limits or boundaries, whichever you want to call it, where you feel secure and ease in establishing your wants and needs first with confidence. And in today's episode, we're going to be discussing on normalizing conflicts. In other words, how to gain effective conflict resolution skills. We will be reviewing the characteristics of people pleasing and appeasing, some advantages and disadvantages as a result of people pleasing, and the goal for today's episode is to be able to look at somebody in the eye who's disapproving of your opinion and being able to handle that. Also, on why it is not easily detected and difficult to obtain effective conflict resolution skills. Another goal is on how to normalize the conflicts from the nervous system so that you can feel through conflicts as a normal way of being and not something personal as a bad thing, that you did something wrong or are a bad person, feeling shameful or guilt because there was a creation of conflicts. Basically seeing conflict as a good and positive thing. And lastly, to be able to feel what it can be like to say something to somebody and not get hit with consequences of shame, guilt, and negative thoughts that you are the bad person because you said it. I will give you strategies that will help you learn on how to normalize conflicts. There will be some self-reflection questions that could help prompt you to the right direction in standing up to what you believe in. I will give you a cheat sheet on normalizing conflicts to decrease that habit of people pleasing. So stick around, because in the beginning, I will give you a quick strategy on how to gain your self-expression and normalize saying no to help you deal with conflict. Remember, the goal is to learn, change, and grow. You want to be able to say what you want, stand up for what you believe in without getting hit with the consequences of shame, guilt, and negative thoughts because you said it. You want to feel empowered whenever you stand up to what you believe in. So stick around, because this episode is for you.
Tired of feeling misunderstood, frustrated, and emotionally disconnected when communicating with other people? This is Conversations That Work with Anita Sandoval, where you can learn how to maintain healthy conversations with the people who matter most. A podcast where you can gain confidence and get tips for having challenging day-to-day conversations that make you feel understood, validated, and heard. Here is your host, a licensed professional counselor specializing in communication skills, strategies, and techniques, Anita Sandoval. Let's start the conversation.
Thank you guys for joining me in this journey with people pleasing and appeasing. I can't believe we're already done with the first half of the summer. It is ridiculously hot over here, but I'm just so glad that I'm able to share this knowledge I have with people pleasing. And I really hope that you guys have learned a lot from this, and feel free to leave a comment on what you liked, which one of all the strategies you enjoyed the most. So in this episode, I normally do story time. However, I decided, because there's so many things that I want to help you and mention, that I decided we're going to save that for another episode. So I would like to begin with conflicts. One of the biggest issues I have with conflicts is that even if I try to mention something that is different, an opinion that is different from the other person, or an issue that I'm having, right away I'm looked at as if I'm the crazy person or a difficult person, just because I don't want to go with the flow. That is something that I have struggled with for years, especially as a female. As I have mentioned before, females are supposed to be pleasing and appeasing and always agreeable. Well, not this female. One of the strategies that I've learned is that sometimes I ask myself, if I were a man, would they allow this? And it quickly puts me in perspective. If they were to allow a male to do that, why not a female? So I usually ask myself that question. Would it be okay if a male were to do this? Would they allow this? Then it's okay for me too, because we are equally the same. Let's begin with the quick tip and strategy. So remember that the brain learns through different experiences. So the strategy is to practice saying no at least 4 times throughout the day and write about it. I always tell my patients, carry a little notebook. I used to do the same thing in the beginning, and I still do. I have a little notebook in my purse to write down ideas, to write down anything that I may be thinking or feeling. And you want to practice saying no in different situations throughout the day. Think about something you might want to say no about. This is muscle benefits. Your nervous system, you think about it beforehand on how you're going to say no. Doesn't matter what it is. In the previous episodes, we discussed on how you're telling your loved ones that you're practicing on saying no. You want to be able to just hear it. Hear the no coming out of you. The voice of you saying no. Other people listening to you saying no and being okay with it. It will help you gain self-expression. You want to normalize saying no. You want to be able to deal with this conflict of just saying no. So while you're having a conversation with someone and they want to interrupt you, keep talking. Even if someone wants to interrupt you, keep talking until you finish your sentence. You want to learn from when you are saying no and expressing your opinions. When you're done saying no, write down in your notebook, what did you like about it? What you didn't like about it? How did it feel within your body, sensations? What did you learn from it? And what are you going to do next time? I am not here to tell you that you're going to have a positive experience every single time you say no. I will let you know that you will not have a negative experience every single time you say no either. You just want to practice having to say the word no. No, I don't want breakfast. No, I don't want lunch. 5 minutes later, you can then say, yes, you know what? I do want breakfast now. So it doesn't have to be big no's. Just the fact that you were able to say no. Baby steps. I always say baby steps. Begin small. Am I going to have a good morning? No. Well, 1 minute later, you know what? Yes, I'm going to have a good morning. No, I don't want to go outside. You don't really have to say no to someone. You just want to really practice saying no throughout the day. Just hear yourself saying no. Now, when you do say no and express your opinions with someone, do ask yourself those questions. What did you like? What you didn't like? What you learned? How it felt? And what you're going to do next time. That'll help you in your journey and your path in moving forward. The goal here is to learn, change, and grow. To feel what it can be like to say something to somebody. And then finally feel confident and ease in saying no. You will begin feeling empowered. It might feel scary at first. This is why I have you write it down in your journal entry to discuss how it felt. But the more you go through it, the more you practice it, you will make progress. And you will start programming your nervous system and normalizing it, that it is okay to say no and express your opinion. And that you're still a good person.
Connect with Anita on Facebook. Facebook.com/conversations that work.
One of the common beliefs is that a good relationship is when there's no conflict, and that means they love each other. Well, that's not necessarily the case. Relationships is a connection that you have between two people, be it a person that you just met, a person you go to school with, a person you go to work with, somebody that you connect with or associate with, and that's a relationship. Could be a relationship with a stranger where you're not talking to each other. That's still a relationship. And so a lot of people assume, oh, these people have a good relationship because they never fight. They never argue. They never have conflicts. The reality is that the meaning of conflicts is where you find the rough spots within that relationship and you work together to smooth them out. You work in a way that best meet the needs of each other. So when you work together to smooth things out, you not only respect each other and understand each other and support each other, you're growing together and building an even stronger relationship through these conflicts. It is important and actually healthy to have conflicts in the relationship. But keep in mind that there are healthy ways of having conflicts and an unhealthy way of having conflicts. So throughout this episode, we will be discussing some effective, healthy conflict resolution skills. Let's talk about the characteristics, behaviors of people pleasers and appeasers when it comes to conflicts. They can't tolerate conflicts. Sometimes I like to see it as the elephant in the room. Everyone knows it's right there, but nobody talks about it. People pleasers and appeasers can't tolerate conflict. They don't have the capacity or have not been given permission to articulate their own needs and to advocate for themselves, maybe growing up. And so they learned through programming, through the way they were raised, that it's not okay to advocate for yourself. Therefore, they cannot deal with conflict resolution. What ends up happening is symptoms of sadness, depression, anger, self-blame, and even blaming others. Conflicts and boundaries go hand in hand because whenever you are articulating, communicating your conflicts, there needs to be some light boundary setting. That way there is a win-win within the conflicts, where there is a respect and understanding within your opinions and the other person. So the cost of not having those set skills of boundaries or conflicts will cause a break in relationships over time. The common myth is if I people please and appease, the relationship will be good. And it might in the short term, but in the long term, it will break down. Some conflict is a normal, healthy part of relationships. It can neutralize your fears of setting limits, and it can help support you in setting boundaries. The benefits of having effective conflict skills is learning on how to have positive problem-solving skills, which is great in leadership. It will help you increase resiliency. And remember, resiliency is the way you bounce back from challenging situations. It will help you create boundaries with your values, and it will establish you to act in alignment with who you identify with. Therefore, it will help decrease stress and depression from losing your self-identity. Some of the things that people pleasers do instead of effective conflict resolution skills is that they people please in a way where they assume that they will get something in return from someone else. It's a way of getting their emotional needs met, but they see it as if I do something for you, then you will do something for me. But it's really not clarified. It's more of like, well, I did A, B, C. The least you could do was this. Then the other person's like, well, you never told me that I needed to do that. You put me in a situation that I didn't even know about. People pleasers, they do something so they could have someone implicitly return the favor without asking, which is lack of communication. And when it is not returned, what do people pleasers do? They get snarky, sarcastic, petty, hostile. They push away people, use the silent treatment, punish you, never telling you why, but just implying that there's something there, there's something you did, and the other person doesn't even know because it was not clarified. So what happens is there's a miscommunication of people's anger at them. They assume that people are mad for not doing enough, and then they end up doing more. So this is where you get emotionally exhausted because you don't communicate. And you just do, thinking if I just do it, they will see this. It is not productive in avoiding conflicts that need to be addressed. The relationship's health gets affected. And it limits the other person's resilience and ability to speak about their own needs and take care of themselves, where the other person then understands, or maybe they know, hey, what I'm responsible for you to do this for you when you can do this for yourself. I didn't know you were doing this for me so that I could then do this for you. This irrational belief stems from past unhealthy environments. The being too agreeable, the going with the flow, even if it's against your values. Some of the beliefs is, I'm in a dangerous situation. I need to be nice to avoid conflicts or things from escalating. So then they're used to avoiding conflicts. When they were children, if they were to create conflicts, they would be spanked or they would get in trouble, be it at home or at school. And they don't want to get shamed at, put down, spanked. So they just said, you know what? Why stand up for myself? It's better just to keep quiet. But what happens is if you go along with things, even though you don't believe in it, This is where the whole, well, why do you have an attitude? What's wrong with you? Why are you in a mood? It will show eventually. Assuming that it's about satisfying someone else's needs, complying just to get the problem to go away, or shutting down and not engaging, does not fix the problem, does not solve the problem. It's avoiding the problem. What people pleasers tend to do is avoid at all costs. What happens when you avoid the conflict? It snowballs. It keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger.
Sign up for up-to-date information and resources at conversationsatwork.org.
What happens with people pleasers and appeasers, they will not enter into any conflict. At least that's part of the programming. It doesn't mean that you have to keep doing the same programming. This is a pattern learned growing up with an unavailable person or an abusive one, where we had to be fearful to please the angry person. Remember that this was an adaptive way for the person to protect themselves from conflict or danger. Because growing up, having conflict was a big no-no. At home, I tend to discuss conflicts. I tend to discuss issues that might bring difference of opinions. That way, everybody can discuss the conflicts and maybe come up with their own opinion while still respecting the other person. One of the board games that I really enjoy that helps with that with children is Apples to Apples. Because here, one person gets to judge what everybody else puts down and they get to pick one. The other people tend to want to fight for their card, but it's okay if they don't pick them, but they get to speak their opinion. Keep in mind when it comes to conflicts and people pleasing, this is reinforced by social and cultural norms. What does society say about conflict? No, we're not allowed. Protesting is bad. Advocating is not a good thing. But we still do it. Why? Because we want people to know what we believe in, and it's okay. People pleasers also easily tolerate the mistreatment of others. They have a high tolerance of unhealthy relationships, of abuse, or bullying behaviors from others. So it's important to know what is healthy and not healthy. One of the symptoms that people pleasers tend to have is negative self-defeating beliefs such as, I'm not worthy, I'm not enough, and I'm not lovable. Insecurity, doubt, low self-esteem, anxiety, and then the major 4 fears. Fear of abandonment, fear of rejection, fear of disappointment, and fear of failure. Why is it that it's not easily detected and difficult to obtain the effective conflict resolution skills? Society tends to praise people pleasing. Someone does something before they were asked. Oh, people call that initiative. It's socially acceptable. They appear to get along, and then they get rewarded for it. Having initiative means being a team player. The nervous system acts differently, and it changes when we people please and appease. It regulates the nervous system so you're not in a state of hypervigilance for the short term. It's a mask where you appear to get along just fine in the day-to-day lives. Some of the questions that you can ask yourself whenever there is a conflict that you know you need to have with the other person. Before you people please and appease, what is the impact of this? And the other people, what is the negative effect it will have on you and the other person if you don't have that conversation? if you don't have the resolution of that conflict.
Conversations at Work with Anita Sandoval, making challenging conversations easy.
Before we begin with the strategies, I do want to give you a little tip. You want to remove yourself, get some distance from the situation, the trigger whenever possible, whenever it's unhealthy. You're not able to use and utilize effective conflict resolution skills, solve problems, whenever you are in high negative momentum. Because all you're thinking about is survival, which leads to fight, flight, freeze, people please, and appease. You want to be in an environment where you feel comfortable and safe. When the triggers are removed from your nervous system, you will automatically self-regulate. You will be able to think more clearly. Then you can be able to discuss and talk about conflict resolutions, which is why it's important to carry your notebook. Because depending where you're at, you might lose your train of thought, but when you have things written down, you can always go back to that. You want to ask yourself, is this a people-pleasing and appeasing response? A want or a need for survival? Is it an image that I want to set for other people when you discuss the conflicts? If you're discussing a conflict that has to deal with a people-pleasing response where you want to look good, that's something that you're going to have to reflect within yourself. You want the conflict resolution to be a matter of value, a matter of what you believe in, your self-expression, not what somebody else would think. So just keep those in mind before you begin. In this strategy, it involves stating a different opinion, and you fear them being disapproving of you. There will be people who don't like you, no matter what, who you are or what you do. One of the examples that I like to use is if Jesus himself, who was perfect, had people who hated him, they crucified him, they killed him, why would we believe that everybody's going to like and love us? You will have people that will be disapproving because everybody's entitled to their own opinion, and that's okay. Opinions are just opinions. They really have no value. So always ask yourself, whose opinion matters? I better hear on the other end that it's yours. Okay, so you want to make 3 columns. And you want to put on column 1, you want to make a list of things you think of as being important. Column 2, you make a list of people who are going to agree with you. Column 3, list of people who are not going to agree with you, who are going to disagree with you. You want to start with something general like the NRA, Republican, Democrat, some big organizations, pro-life, pro-choice, and just make that list. The goal here is to look at somebody in the eye who's disapproving and being able to handle that. So when you start big, just naming organizations, and you start asking yourself some questions. The questions you want to ask is, does this mean you've done something wrong? Just because someone is pro-choice and the other person is pro-life? Or one's Republican, one's Democrat? Does this mean you've done something bad? Is aligning to your values and standing up to what you believe in wrong or bad? How far are you willing to go to compromise some value you hold, some belief you have, some perspective that matters to you? How much will it cost you if you compromise your values in the long run? Not short term, but in the long run. And is maintaining your values worth the backlash? So you want to start general Then you can go specific. Baby steps. Ask yourself those same questions. Now we can go a little bit more specific. One of the controversies is wearing the mask. There are a lot of people not wearing masks. COVID is still around. Some people don't wear it, and that's okay. Some people do, and that's okay too. Does this mean that you're wrong or a bad person, whether you decide to wear a mask or not? No. I remember one person not wearing their mask and them saying, well, nobody's wearing their mask. Well, actually, some people are. So are you not wearing your mask because everybody's not wearing it? Or is it something you believe in? Are you doing something to hold an image? Are you doing something to people please? Or is it a value? Okay, so let's keep going. Strategy number 2. The goal here is to normalize the conflicts from the nervous system so that you can feel through the conflicts as a normal way of being and not something personal as a bad thing, that you did something wrong, or a bad person feeling that shame or guilt. It's good to have somebody who is supportive of you, who is not judgmental, who's not easily to critique. And you want to pick an issue of the day. Look in the news, there's always something. Pick one side, have the other person pick the other opposite side. And of course, you want to ask them how argumentative they should be. Always keep it clean. No name calling, no putting down, no bad words, no raising your voice. You want to have it be cool, calm, and collected when it comes to a conflict. It's just like a matter-of-fact type of conflict. You want to be able to state your values, watch your tone of voice, be aware of your body sensations, and you want to be able to learn to agree to disagree and set boundaries. Again, depending how your nervous system is, you want to start general and then go specific. You can pick a simple topic such as somebody liking a certain type of food. Do you prefer seafood or do you prefer steak? Have one advocate for seafood and have one advocate for steak. Watch the tone of voice. Start learning how to have conflicts without raising the tone of voice. How to state the values. How to be aware of your body sensations. You want to be able to practice the disagreements so much that the nervous system will see it as a normal thing, just like talking. Because that's really what it is. You're just talking, having conversations with different points of views. And that's okay. And in every strategy, I always recommend what I stated earlier in the episode. What did you like about it? What you didn't like about it? What you learned and what you're going to do next time. I remember when I first started, I would write down on the notebook, what were my values? What were the behaviors, the activities that I did that encompassed those values? And what was my negotiable and non-negotiable? Basically, my boundaries, my limits. What would I allow and what would I not allow? So that's the main thing that I recommend you writing on your journal or notebook, whatever you want to call it. Whenever there's a discussion with someone, what are your values? What do you feel about it? Happy, sad, angry, scared. What is it that you do that encompasses those values? Then what are you going to do about it? One of the common mistakes that people do is they assume that others are going to have to do for them. And that's not the case. When it comes to your own values, they're your boundaries. You can't force people to believe in what you believe in. If they believe in it, great. And if they don't, that's okay too. You can't force people to share your values. Because in the short term, they might say yes, that's people pleasing. But in the long term, it will backfire. There will be resentment. There will be passive aggressiveness. It just does not work out. Come to an agreement where you can still hold true to your value and respect the other person. And that's what conflict resolution is. It is not, I'll people please this time and do what you say, because that is a win-lose situation. And it will break down and backfire. However, when you use the conflict resolution skills, where it's the meeting of understanding and supporting each other's values, and you respect that, there will be more trust and more ability to communicate more issues in the long run. Therefore, you're growing and learning and changing together. You're building that relationship in a positive manner. In our next episode, I will be discussing values, how to know what your values are, and therefore, when you know what your values are, how to establish boundaries within those values. And I will leave you with this quote: all conflicts, no matter how intractable, are capable of peaceful resolution. By Nelson Mandela. Until our next conversation, be well and stay safe.
Thank you for listening to Conversations at Work with Anita Sandoval. Know someone who needs help in having healthy conversations? Share this episode and make sure to subscribe so you don't miss the next one. Until our next conversation.